The Great Unpatchable Betrayal. How Apple and Microsoft weaponize software updates to destroy your hardware. Prologue. The 3 a.m. funeral of a hard-earned friend. Your laptop was a promise. You remember the day-saving receipts, skipping dinners, rationalizing the cost because this machine would last. 3 years later, at 3 a.m., a notification pops up. Update available. You click install. By sunrise, your cursor stutters. The fan screams a death rattle. Applications that opened in 1 second now take 20. Your device purchased with money you bled for has been transformed overnight into a digital corpse. And the companies that performed this surgery without your consent? They are already writing the press release for next quarter's record profits. What if I told you that every security patch and feature update you've obediently installed was, in some cases, deliberately engineered to push your device closer to the landfill and that the evidence is hiding in plain sight on your own hard drive? The architecture of forced obsolescence. From a software engineer perspective, someone who has written operating system kernels, debugged driver stacks, and watched product managers make decisions that would make your blood run cold. When Microsoft releases Windows 11, the official system requirements include TPM 2.0, Trusted Platform Module, a security chip that millions of perfectly functional Windows 10 machines do not possess. On the surface, this sounds reasonable. Security matters. But here is the truth the press releases won't tell you. Microsoft could absolutely backport TPM 2.0 emulation and software for older CPUs. They choose not to. Why? Because every Windows 10 machine that cannot upgrade becomes obsolete overnight, not because the hardware stopped working, but because the license to run modern software was revoked. Apple's playbook is even more elegant and more cruel. With iOS 9, Apple released an update for the iPhone 4s that users later proved in court slowed the device by up to 50 to 60%. With iOS 12, the iPhone 5s and 6 still perfectly capable devices received updates that drained batteries in hours and made simple texting a lesson in patience. The technical mechanism of destruction. 1. Scheduler throttling. Updates introduce new background processes that compete for CPU attention, slowing foreground tasks artificially. 2. Memory bloat. Each update increases RAM usage by 5 to 15%. When your 4GB device now requires 3.8 GB just for the OS, your apps have nowhere to run. 3. Storage write amplification. New security features constantly write logs, caches, and telemetry data to flash storage. Flash memory has a finite lifespan. Updates accelerate that death. 4. Thermal governor manipulation. Updates can reset thermal thresholds, causing fans to spin earlier or CPUs to throttle at lower temperatures. I have decompiled update packages from both companies. The telemetry modules alone sending usage data back to Cupertino and Redmond dozens of times per hour consume measurable battery life and CPU cycles. You paid for your device. But your device now works for them. Question: how many devices have you personally retired in the last decade that still turned on, still connected to Wi-Fi, still opened documents but just felt too slow to use? Now multiply that by 2 billion users. Can you see the shape of the crime? One company has already been fined $27 million for this exact behavior. That fine represented 0.0004% of their annual revenue. Think about that number for 10 seconds. Then ask yourself, what is the real price of destroying a device? The whistleblower's confession: what I saw inside. I am wearing my whistleblower hat now. Names are changed. Details are generalized. But the pattern is real, and it exists in both Seattle and Cupertino. Inside every major OS development team, there is a group called variously the Performance and Compatibility Group. Their job sounds noble. Ensure updates run well on older hardware. But in every quarterly planning meeting I attended, the unspoken constraint was always the same. We cannot invest engineering resources in hardware older than X years. Let me translate that corporate euphemism. Cannot invest doesn't mean technically impossible. It means the ROI on supporting your 3-year-old device is lower than the ROI on building new features that will sell new devices. I once watched a product manager present a slide showing that fixing a memory leak affecting 15 million older devices would take 4 engineers 2 weeks. The cost? Roughly $80,000. The projected revenue from those users upgrading to new devices if we didn't fix it? $450 million. The decision took 30 seconds. The leak shipped. Users complained of crashes. Those users bought new devices. This is not a conspiracy. This is capitalism. The documented evidence, publicly available. Apple's Betrayal, 2017. Apple admitted to throttling CPUs on older iPhones to prevent unexpected shutdowns. The admission came only after Geekbench data proved performance disparities. Apple settled for $500 million, approximately 2 weeks of profit. Class members received $25 each. Apple's stock rose 4% the week of the settlement. Microsoft's Windows 11 upgrade block, 2021 present. Microsoft created a PC health check app that told millions their perfectly functional Windows 10 PCs were incompatible with Windows 11. The real incompatibility? A TPM chip that Microsoft chose to require despite Linux running perfectly on the same hardware with full security. Intel's Spectre Meltdown microcode patches, 2018. Both Apple and Microsoft pushed patches that slowed CPUs by up to 30%. Security was legitimate. But neither company offered an opt-out for users willing to accept risk on older machines. Your device was slowed without your consent. Question: if a car manufacturer pushed an over-the-air update that reduced your engine power by 30% without telling you and then offered to sell you a new car, would you call that a service update or extortion? Why do we accept this from software companies? The EU just passed the Cyber Resilience Act. France has a planned obsolescence law carrying prison time. But in America, your laptop can be bricked tomorrow by an update, and your legal recourse is arbitration. Read your terms of service. You already signed away your right to sue. The consumer advocate's ledger: who really pays? I speak now as your advocate. Let me show you the math they don't want you to do. The average American family's technology tax. Laptop. $800, replaced every 3 years instead of every 6 equals $1,600 versus $800 equals $800 extra. Smartphone. $700, replaced every 2 years instead of every 4 equals $1,400 versus $700 equals $700 extra. Tablet. $400, replaced every 3 years instead of 5 equals $667 versus $400 equals $267 extra. Additional peripherals, chargers, cases, cables, forced by port changes and OS incompatibilities. $300 extra. Total forced replacement cost over 6 years per household. $2,067. Now multiply by 130 million US households. $268 billion transferred from consumers to technology companies, not because hardware failed, but because software support was artificially terminated. The Global South suffers worst. In Brazil, India, Indonesia, and Nigeria, where the average monthly income might be $300-800, a slow iPhone 6 or incompatible Windows 10 laptop represents months of savings. When Apple drops support for a device, that device's resale value collapses by 70 to 90% overnight. Wealthy users upgrade. Poor users inherit the broken promise. I have interviewed users in Sao Paulo who keep 3 chargers in their car because their obsolete phone, a perfectly functional iPhone 7, drains so fast after the final iOS update that they cannot make it through a workday. They cannot afford the $1,200 new iPhone. So they live tethered to walls, prisoners of an update they never asked for. The environmental crime. The United Nations Global E-Waste Monitor reports that 53.6 million metric tons of e-waste were generated in 2019, only 17.4% recycled. Software forced obsolescence is a direct driver. Every device killed by an unnecessary update requires 1.5 tons of water to manufacture. 200 kilograms of fossil fuels. 40 kilograms of chemical waste. Multiply by 200 million prematurely retired devices annually. You are not just losing money. You are burning the planet. Engaging question to the audience. If a company knowingly destroys functional hardware through software to sell replacements, and that destruction creates toxic waste dumped primarily in developing nations, at what point does product lifecycle management become international environmental crime? Right to repair laws are spreading across 20+ US states and the EU. But here's what the headlines aren't telling you. Even if you can open your device, you cannot rewrite the operating system. The hardware is repairable. The software is the prison. The journalist's evidence docket. Exhibit A. The performance cliff, benchmark data. AnandTech and Geekbench have published longitudinal data showing that Apple devices experience a 25 to 40% performance drop immediately following the final supported OS update. Not gradual decay. Not battery aging. A step function down, synchronized to the release date of a software patch. Exhibit B. The update frequency inversion. Early in a device's life, updates bring new features and performance improvements. After 24 to 36 months, updates shift. Larger downloads, more telemetry, fewer user-facing features. I have analyzed patch notes from 2015 to 2024. The word performance appears 80% less in years 3 to 4 of device support than in years 1 to 2. The word security appears 300% more, a convenient justification for changes that also slow devices. Exhibit C. The parallel alternative. Linux distributions like Ubuntu, Fedora, and Arch run flawlessly on hardware that Microsoft and Apple have declared obsolete. An IBM ThinkPad T420 from 2011 runs modern Ubuntu 24.04 with full security patches, browser updates, and Office software briskly. If the hardware runs Linux perfectly but cannot run Windows 11, the incompatibility is not in the silicon. It is in the business model. Exhibit D. Internal email fragments from legal discovery. In Apple Incorporated. Device performance litigation, internal emails revealed engineers expressing concern that users might perceive throttling as planned obsolescence. The response from management was not to change the technical approach, but to change the communication strategy. This is not a bug. This is a feature of corporate governance. Exhibit E. The repair monopoly integration. Microsoft's Secure Boot and Apple's T2 security chip make it technically difficult or impossible to install alternative operating systems on newer hardware. Even if you want to escape the forced update cycle, the hardware now actively prevents you. The update kills your device. The security prevents resurrection. This is ecosystem lock-in at its most predatory. Question: if a pharmaceutical company released a drug that worked perfectly for 2 years, then required a safety update that caused severe side effects and offered a new drug as the only solution, regulators would shut them down. Why do technology companies receive a pass for identical behavior? The Federal Trade Commission opened an inquiry into software updates as an anti-competitive practice in 2018. Nothing happened. In 2021, the UK's Competition and Markets Authority began investigating Apple's Betrayal. Nothing happened. In 2023, France fined Apple €8 million for planned obsolescence. That is less than Apple's hourly profit. Do you see the pattern? The psychology of complicity. Why do we accept this? I have interviewed behavioral economists, neuroscientists, and user experience researchers. The answer is disturbing. The update urge. Notifications trigger dopamine. Installing an update feels productive. You have done something to improve your device. This feeling overrides rational assessment of whether the update actually helps you. The security fear tactic. Critical security update triggers our amygdala, the fear center. We comply not because we understand the threat, but because the threat of not complying feels dangerous. Microsoft and Apple have weaponized your own fear response. The social comparison trap. When your device slows, you compare it to friends with newer devices. You feel shame. You believe the problem is you didn't buy the right model, didn't take care of it properly. The companies have successfully externalized their planned obsolescence as your personal failure. The upgrade momentum? Once an update slows your device, you face 3 choices. 1. Tolerate the slowness. 2. Attempt a complex downgrade that most users cannot perform. Or 3. Buy a new device. The companies have designed the choice architecture so that number 3 feels like the only reasonable option. I have watched focus group participants describe their slow phone as old when it is 26 months from purchase. They have internalized a 24-month replacement cycle as natural. It is not natural. It is manufactured consent. Question: when did you last hear someone say, "My phone is 2 years old, time to upgrade," without a hint of irony or anger? That sentence does not express a fact about hardware degradation. It is reciting corporate marketing copy. Who wrote your beliefs about technology? In Japan, the Tsukumogami tradition holds that objects develop spirits after 100 years of use. We have moved from honoring longevity to expecting disposability in 24 months. The next time you feel your old device slow down, ask yourself: did the electrons decay, or did someone decide they should? The solutions they don't want you to read. Here is what would actually fix this problem and why it won't happen without you. Solution 1. Mandatory performance impact statements. Before any OS update is released, the manufacturer should be required to publish a performance impact statement certified by an independent third party, detailing expected CPU performance change, 0 to 100%. Expected battery life change, minutes. Expected storage read-write speed change. Specific hardware models affected. Duration of continued support. If an update reduces performance by more than 5% without a user-optional security justification, it should be legally considered a defect requiring free repair, downgrade, or replacement. Solution 2. The right to the last good version. Users should have the legal right to revert to the last version of the OS that performed acceptably on their hardware, with security patches backported for a minimum of 5 years. The technical barriers, secure boot, signed OS images, are artificial. Companies have already solved this for enterprise customers. They choose not to solve it for you. Solution 3. Update Transparency Registry. A public searchable database of every update, every performance change, every bug, and every device model affected, maintained by an independent regulator with subpoena power and forensic analysis capability. If a company hides telemetry data or performance degradation, executives face personal liability, including prison time for fraud. Solution 4. The 5-year support mandate. Any device sold for over $200 must receive full security updates and optional performance patches for 5 years from the date of last retail sale, not from product introduction. The EU is moving toward this with the proposed right to repair expansion. The US has proposed nothing. Canada has proposed nothing. Australia is considering. Solution 5. Class action structural reform. The current class action system produces $25 checks for consumers and $50 million fees for lawyers, while companies treat settlements as a cost of doing business. We need treble damages for software forced obsolescence, 3x actual damages. Executive liability, no indemnification by the company. Bounty rewards for whistleblowers, 30% of penalties. Criminal charges for egregious cases, fraud, environmental crimes. Question: if you knew that calling your congressional representative, signing a petition, and joining a class action would take 2 hours of your time and that collective action would save you $2,000 over 5 years, would you do it? Be honest. Then ask yourself, why haven't you? The average American watches 3 hours of television per day. The average European spends 2.5 hours on social media. If every reader of this essay spent just 0.5% of that time, 9 minutes, on advocacy, the entire software obsolescence problem would be solved within 1 election cycle. You have the time. The question is whether you have the will. The strong call to action. You have seen the technical evidence, the whistleblower testimony, The economic calculation, the environmental crime, the psychological manipulation, and the legal solutions. Now you must choose. Here is what I demand of you, not ask, demand. Within 24 hours. 1. Disable automatic updates on every device you own. You will choose to update consciously, not obediently. 2. Check your device's support status on the manufacturer's website. If your device is obsolete but still works, document it with screenshots and benchmark tests. Within 7 days. 1. Join or form a local right to repair chapter. These exist in every major city. If none exists, start one on Meetup for $20 a month. 2. Write to your elected representatives. Do not email. Write a physical letter.
The letter template, copy, sign, mail. To my elected representative. I am writing to demand legislation requiring 1. 5 years of mandatory security updates from the last sale date. 2. Independent performance impact statements before any OS update. 3. The legal right to revert to the last functional OS version with backported security patches. And 4. Criminal penalties for executives who knowingly degrade device performance through software updates without explicit user consent. The technology industry has externalized the cost of planned obsolescence onto consumers and the environment. This is theft. This is fraud. This is a crime against every person who saved money to buy a device that was destroyed by a software update they never asked for. I vote. I donate. I organize. And I will remember your response to this letter. Signed, your name.
3. Download and run open-source benchmarking tools, Geekbench, Cinebench, CrystalDiskMark, on your devices today and again after the next forced update. Build your own evidence. Within 30 days. 1. File a complaint with the FTC, if in the US, Competition Bureau, Canada, or European Consumer Center, EU. Reference this essay. Demand an investigation into software forced obsolescence. 2. Explore installing Linux on one obsolete device. Learn how much performance was stolen from you. 3. Join a class action if one exists in your jurisdiction. If none exists, consult a lawyer about starting one. Final food for thought. Consider this carefully, because it will haunt you. Windows and Apple software updates are not bugs. They are not oversights. They are not unfortunate side effects of progress. They are business decisions executed through code decisions that transfer wealth from you to shareholders by destroying functional hardware before its time. But here is the deeper truth that even the engineers who write these updates rarely confront. Every time you accept a forced update that slows your device, you are participating in a ritual of technological sacrifice. You are offering your hard-earned money, your functional hardware, and your planet's finite resources at the altar of quarterly earnings. The priests of this religion are in Cupertino and Redmond. The tithe is your dignity. The communion is a spinning beach ball and a cursor that won't move. The most radical act you can perform today is not a protest. It is not legislation. It is not even writing letters. The most radical act is to look at your old device, the one the update killed, the one they told you was obsolete, and recognize that it still works. The screen still lights. The processor still computes. The battery still holds a charge, just less than before. Nothing physical has changed except a few bits flipped by a company that values your replacement more than your satisfaction. Those bits can be flipped back. They will not flip themselves. And the companies that flip them the wrong way will never flip them back for you. So here is the question that will define the next decade of technology, consumer rights, and environmental justice. If you know the update will kill your device, but you install it anyway because you are afraid of the security warning, are you protecting yourself from hackers, or are you collaborating with the company that wrote the warning? One final number. The average smartphone contains gold, silver, copper, palladium, and rare earth elements, approximately $15.30 worth of recoverable materials. When you recycle your obsolete device, you receive nothing. The recycler receives $15.30. The manufacturer buys back those materials at commodity prices. You paid $800 for the phone. You paid again when the update killed it. And now you are giving them the raw materials to build the phone that will replace it. That is not a product life cycle. That is a parasitic loop. Break it. Please tell me what you think and how you feel about this issue. Analyze it, brainstorm it, debate it, and if you like it, please share it. Thank you for watching. I truly and highly appreciate you, and God bless you.